Hello everybody. I'm not an English native speaker, so I'm going to make lots of blunders when I'm speaking English, so pardon me. Okay, the topic of this video is Daniel 9, okay? My friend told me, my Christian friend, and he told me yesterday that there's a prophecy in Daniel 9 which foretells not only the coming of the Jesus Christ, but it also tells the exact date when Jesus will be crucified. And I was like, oh man, that's great. And then he showed me the video from the AOC network, and I watched that video. It's of like 36 minutes. You can watch that video too, and I would like you to watch that video before you watch this one, so that you have the idea what is the narrative of Christian on Daniel 9, right? So I watched that video and I was like, oh man, that's great stuff. Why don't the Christians just use Daniel 9 as an evidence for the crucifixion? Why do they just go towards the historical evidence and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Why don't they just simply put Daniel 9 on the table in order to prove the crucifixion of Jesus on the cross, right? So the Christians believe that the Daniel 9 is the prophecy for the crucifixion of Jesus. And if you watch that video, I watched that video from the AOC network, and in that video they jump directly to the verse 25. And in that video they are not going to tell you what is the context, right? And I wish that they had told the context, because if you see from the context, then this whole argument or this whole prophecy, it just doesn't stay there, right? And I'm going to prove you that today. So first I would like to tell you what the Christians think about Daniel 9. So if you ask any Christian about Daniel 9, they will just jump to 25 or 26 verse. They will not gonna bother about the context. Okay, so let's see from what their perspective says about the Daniel 9 verse 25. So if you read this verse from 25, so you ought to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild the Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Okay, so if you see that, they have just manipulated with the translation, right? Now in the Jewish translation, there is a semicolon after will be 7 weeks. Okay, there's a semicolon there, right? And after that semicolon there's and 62 weeks. But what I've done is that they've just pushed the semicolon after 62 weeks, and this really does change the meaning. And you will just realize this when I will explain you the whole stuff. So just bear with me, and this video is going to be long, definitely, right? So here we are. So what Christians say is that they are like there will be 483 years, because if you have 7 weeks and 62 weeks, they are just 69 weeks, right? And 69 multiplied by 7, because they're just code that in every week there are 7 years. So if you multiply 7 by 69, there's 483 years, right? And the Christians say that from the decree to the coming of the Messiah, there will be 483 years, and then they have to decide which decree do they choose, because there are 4 decrees according to the Old Testament regarding the restoration of the Jerusalem, right? So what they do is that Christians pick the 457 BCE, and that is Artaxerxes, right? So they ignore all of the other decrees and they only pick 457 BCE. And in that video, you will see, in the video of AOC network, you will see that they have picked up 457 BCE. And in itself is a question that why are you specifically picking just one decree? Why are you ignoring all the others, right? So, but we will go with them. So what they say is that there's 457, and if you add 483 to 457, then the date will be 2780, and on 2780 Jesus Christ started his own ministry. And then again, there's a question that the Messiah came in 0 AD, right? He didn't came in 27 AD. He started his ministry on 27 AD, but he didn't arrived on 27 AD. He arrived 27 years before that, right? Okay, but we're gonna ignore that stuff. Okay, so here we are. So they say that it's just 27 on 27 AD Jesus started his ministry, so it just perfectly fits Jesus Christ. Okay, then we read, and then after 62 years the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and it will come with a flood. Even to the end there will be war, desolations are determined, and he will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week. Okay, so that's the 1 week, and but in the middle of the week he will be put to stop. He will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering, and on the wing of the abominations will come on who makes the desolate, even until a complete destruction. One that is decreed is put out on the one who makes desolate. Okay, so what Christians say that there is just the middle of the week. The 1 week refers to 7 years. The middle of the week refers to 3.5 years. So if you add 3.5 years to 27 AD, you will get 30.5 AD, and that's literally the time when Jesus was crucified. So it's their interpretation of this passage of these three verses from 25 to 27, right? And that is their narrative regarding the Daniel 9. And they say that the exact date of the Messiah is the coming of the Messiah is there, and exact date of the crucifixion of the Messiah is there. So why don't you believe that Jesus died on the cross, or that Jesus was the chosen Messiah, right? But there are lots of problems, and the major problem is that the Christian scholars have really manipulated with the translation, and I would just prove to you that how they have manipulated the translation. That's the first big problem. The second big problem is that if you read these verses, if you read this, then after 62 weeks the Messiah will be cut off. So it means that Jesus will be cut off after 62 weeks and have nothing, and the people and have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. So it says that when the Jesus will be cut off, or when the Jesus will be put to death. In some translations it is put to death, just to make it more like Jesus. Okay, and the people. Okay, so the problem here is that after 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people. So it just tells you that when the Messiah will be cut off, the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city. And we know that the second temple was destroyed on 70 AD, and Jesus was crucified on 30, right? So there's a big gap of 40 years. How do you reconcile that? And it's a major problem, because in the same verse, and there's a word "and," which tells that it is the exact same time when the Messiah will be supposedly crucified. So, and we know that it doesn't happen. It didn't happen. There was a time of 40 years, and if you convert that into weeks, it will be around 5.5 weeks. So why the Daniel didn't say that after the 5.5 weeks there will be the destruction? You see the problem there? Now here, then after 62 weeks the Messiah will be cut off. The Daniel could have said that after the after the 5.5 weeks the prince who is to come will destroy the city, right? But Daniel doesn't say that, and it also shows that it's the exact same time when the Messiah will be cut off. You see the problem here, and it's a big problem. And I would like you to ponder on this thing and think rationally rather than emotionally. You have to think rationally. Okay, so this in fact is more than enough to prove that it doesn't talk about the Messiah or about the Jesus. But we will go one step forward, and I would like you to tell you the truth, that what really happens in this verse. So in order to make a correct interpretation, you have to look at the context. Why do the Christians don't look at the context and they simply jump on the verse 25? And and I'm going to find that now, right? I will tell you why don't they tell you the verse? Why don't they tell you right from the verse 1? Okay, so here we are, and I will be reading from the Jewish translation. Okay, so here we have the Daniel 9. In the first year of the Darius, by birth a Mede, who became the king over the realm of the Chaldeans. Now Chaldeans is Babylon, right? In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, perceived in the books of the numbers of years that according to the word of the Lord to the prophet Jeremiah, now he's talking about the Jeremiah, must be fulfilled. So it's a prophecy made by the Jeremiah which should be fulfilled for the devastation of Jerusalem, namely 70 years. So now Daniel is referring to the prophecy which Jeremiah made regarding the 70 years, okay? And it's a very important point. Now, what were the prophecy or prophecies made by the Jeremiah? Now, Jeremiah made 2 prophecies, right? And these are the 2 prophecies. Now, I'm just gonna paraphrase it. The first prophecy is that after the 70 years, the first prophecy, here are the 2 prophecies. The first prophecy is that, which is in the Jeremiah 25:11-12. The first prophecy says that after the 70 years, the empire of the Babylon, it will be completely destroyed. Okay. After the 70 years, it will be completely destroyed, right? And the second prophecy says that after the 70 years of the destruction of the Babylon, my word towards you in causing you to return to this place. So the second prophecy says that the Jews who were exiled when Babylon attacked the Jerusalem. Okay, so they were on exile for 70 years, right? And here it says that in causing you to return to this place. So the second prophecy says that after the 70 years of destruction of the Babylon, the people of Jews, or the Jews, will eventually gonna return to their place. And here from the dates we can see that the Nebuchadnezzar, he becomes the king of the Babylon, and after 1 year he subjugates the Jerusalem, and right after the 18 years he destroys the temple. And when he destroys the temple, and if you just count the date from 3318 to 3389, the Darius the Mede kills the Belshazzar. So this is a time when the Babylon Empire was ended. And at this time, the Daniel started writing Daniel 9, and he was like very confused and perplexed. That man, the prophecy says that after the destruction of the Babylonian Empire, the Jews were gonna return to their place. Okay, right? See that? So he saw that the first prophecy has been fulfilled in 3389. The Babylon Empire has been destroyed. Then he was very confused, and he was in anguish that why the Babylon Empire has been destroyed, then why the second prophecy is not being fulfilled? When it says that the second prophecy will be fulfilled when there will be the destruction of the second temple. But he was in anguish that why the second prophecy is not being fulfilled and the Jews are not coming back to their home, right? And he was in deep anguish. The problem is that he was just considering these 2 prophecies to be the same. These prophecies do overlap, but they are not exactly the same. They have the different point of start, right? The second prophecy, here we can see the second prophecy starts from the time there was the destruction of the second temple, right? In 3338, right? So in 3338, after 70 years after 3338, the Jews will return to their home place, right? So he just confused these 2 prophecies, and he thought that he counted the 70 years from 3318, and he expected that in 3389, the 70 years is completed. So in 3389, there will be the Jews will return to their place. And he was making a mistake, because the second prophecy refers to the time from 3338 onwards, right? 70 years after 3338, after the destruction of the second temple. and he didn't get that, and that's why he was in anguish. He was just perplexed, and he was asking God. And now we're gonna read it. So that was the main problem. The first prophecy was fulfilled. The Babylonians were destroyed. The second prophecy was of the return of the Jews. It was not being fulfilled, and that's why Daniel was in anguish, and he just couldn't figure out what was happening. And that is the reason why we can see in then I turned to the Lord. Read the verse 3. Then I turned to the Lord to seek an answer by prayer. Because he wanted to know that the first prophecy has been fulfilled. He has seen that, right? Why the second prophecy is not being fulfilled? So he just started praying, supplicating, just wanting to know the answer, that why the Jews are not coming back, right? And then he said, and then he thought that probably they have sinned a lot, or probably the God have delayed that time. So he was just all in confusion, right? And then he was just praying, and he just confessed his sins. Pardon me. And then you can see that in this whole from the verse 3 onwards, he's just confessing his sins, and he's asking God to tell him that what's going on. And then what God does is that he sends the messenger, right? He sends the Gabriel to answer the problem. And we can see that and that's the Jewish, and now that's the Jewish translation of 19:9. And you see that? That's what I was telling you. 7 weeks here. The semicolon is after the 7 weeks, and in the Christian Bible, what they've done is that they have joined the 7 weeks and 62 years just to make it 483, and they have placed this semicolon here, right? That's a manipulation which Christian scholars did in order to fit this prophecy for Jesus, So here we are. So it says that, and you shall know and comprehend from going forward the word to return and rebuild the Jerusalem until an anointed prince will be 7 weeks. From going forth the word to return and rebuild the Jerusalem until an anointed prince will be 7 weeks. Now 7 weeks is equal to 49 years, right? So the Gabriel came to him and told him that there will be 7 weeks until the coming of the anointed prince, right? And who is the anointed prince? And the Christians understand this anointed prince as Jesus, but it's not Jesus in this case, and I can easily prove that. Okay, read these verses, okay? That says the Cyrus, he is my shepherd and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, you shall be built, saying that the Cyrus will build the Jerusalem, and to the temple your foundation shall be laid. Read the second verse of Isaiah 45. Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have held, and to subdue the nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. I have raised up in them. I have raised up in him righteousness, and I will direct all the ways. He shall build my city. See, God is saying that the Cyrus, his anointed one, will build his city. It's very clear. Cyrus is the one who will come after 7 weeks. He is the one who is the anointed. He is going to come after 7 weeks, 49 years, right? And he shall build my city. He shall let go my captives, not for the price nor reward, says Lord of hosts. Okay, that's good. Now we have to prove that how this prophecy is referring to Cyrus. Okay, here we are. The first destruction of the temple takes place in 3338. Sorry, and what happens after 52 years? In 3390 Cyrus comes. That is 52 years between 33, the destruction of the temple, the first destruction of the temple, and the coming of Cyrus. You see that? 7 weeks. That is 7 weeks, okay? The 52nd week, the Cyrus comes, and that is after 7 weeks. And now it makes perfect sense if you go above and if you just read. Okay. From going forth to the word, the rebuild the Jerusalem. Okay, who is going to build the Jerusalem? We know that is Cyrus. Until an anointed prince will be 7 weeks. That is, we have confirmed that there are 7 weeks between the destruction of the temple and the coming of Cyrus. There are exactly 7 weeks. Now it makes sense. And for 62 weeks, it will be rebuilt, street and mode, but in the troubled times. Now the God is clearly saying that after 7 weeks, the Cyrus will be coming, and for the next 62 weeks, he will build the temple, right? And we have seen that in the verses from Isaiah that he's the one who's going to rebuild the temple, right? So this prophecy perfectly fits Cyrus. Okay. It will be rebuilt, and we can see that after the 62 weeks, and it took 62 weeks for him to rebuild the temple, right? Okay. Moving on, and the 62 weeks, and anointed one will be cut off, and will be no more. The people of the prince the people of the prince who comes will destroy the city and the sanctuary. But his end shall come like a flood until the end of the war. The dissolution is decreed. So it says that after the 62 weeks, the anointed one will be cut off. Now here, the anointed one is not this Cyrus. The anointed one here is definitely not Cyrus, right? He is the priest or the ruler at the time of during the time from 60 AD to 70 AD. Any priest or the ruler who was the ruler of the Jews, right? So. And after this 62 weeks, an anointed one will be cut off and will be no more, right? So what happens is that if we if you read the 27th verse, okay, from the Bible, and he will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he will put a stop to the sacrifice and grain offering. So what happens is that in the middle of the week, the 70th week, okay, first you have to understand that between the destruction of the first temple and the second temple, there are 490 years. The 70 years for the time when the Jews were exiled, and 420 years the second temple stood. So there's a time of 490 years between the destruction of the first temple and the destruction of the second temple. And we read that in the last week, in the middle of the last week, he will put a stop to sacrifice, right? So and if you see the last week will be from 63 AD to 70 AD, right? And right in between 66 AD, there was the war between Romans. The war broke out between the Romans and the Jews, right? And we can see that clearly. It just perfectly makes sense. We can see that the war broke out, and the war continued until the complete destruction of the temple. So, and now if you read the verse 24, and now it will make complete sense to you. 70 weeks have been decreed for your people. Now the God is saying to Daniel that there are 70 weeks. What are the 70 weeks? From the destruction of the first temple to the destruction of the second temple. Now God is saying that you have 70 weeks or 490 years, right? And your holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of the sin, to make an atonement for iniquity. Now the Jews, we know that Jews they were sinning a lot, right? And that is why they were facing the exile, because they broke the commandment. So God is saying that you have 490 years and 70 weeks to finish the transgression which you have done, and to make an end of sin, to stop sinning, and to make atonement for their iniquity, to just to make any sacrifice for the iniquities you have committed, right? To bring in everlasting righteousness to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. So we have seen that this prophecy clearly refers to the Cyrus, and there is no way you just think for a second that Daniel was crying to know, that he was supplicating, and he just wanted to know that why the Jews are not returning back to their place. Now, is this, if you just see the context, does the context make sense that the Gabriel will come and the Gabriel will tell Daniel that there will be a Messiah and he will be crucified? Does it make any sense? He was crying and praying to God that tell him that why the Jews are not coming. The first prophecy has been fulfilled, and he was just crying to tell him that why the Jews are not coming to their homeland. Why? And he was just thinking that probably they have sinned a lot, and that is why he was extremely worried that probably they have sinned a lot, and God has delayed the fulfillment of the second prophecy. He was worried. Now, why would angel come and tell Daniel that there will be a Messiah who will die for the sins of the world, who will be crucified? Does it make any sense? Will it help Daniel in any way? No. But if you see this thing, it perfectly makes sense. It will relieve Daniel, and Daniel will understand that this is something will happen. This is the stuff which is going on, and that is why he was asking God for help. And God sent angel Gabriel to explain to him that what's going on. Okay, and we can also see that, and we can also see in Ezra. And now the problem is that in the Christian Bible, right after the Daniel, there's an other book, right? But in the Jewish Bible, right after the Daniel, there is Ezra, and it makes complete sense. I don't know why they have just changed the order. Maybe they don't want to tell people that who Cyrus was. Read Ezra 1. Now in the first year of the Cyrus, king of the Persia, the word of the Lord by the mouth of the Jeremiah might be fulfilled. See, this is exactly talking about the word of the Jeremiah which might be fulfilled. Makes perfect sense. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of the Persia, that he made the proclamation throughout all of his kingdom, put it also in the writing and the saying. Thus says Cyrus, the king of the Persia, the Lord God of the heaven has given me the kingdoms of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Right? So who is going to build the house? It's Cyrus. How could it be Jesus, right? So it's kind of funny if you read the context, right, and if you just try to put Jesus inside it, you will just laugh on yourself, honestly. Like you can just take the screenshot or pause this video to read what it says, but it clearly refers to the Cyrus, the king, and not Jesus anyway, right? And if you think from the rational perspective, then you will understand it. And if you think from the faith and just what have you been told, or what the Christian missionaries have told you by manipulating the translation of this, then you're stuck, man. And there are many places in the Bible where the Christian missionaries have just manipulated the translation in order to fit Jesus in the prophecies. Okay, take care everybody, love you all.